It's easy to get into a state where you just write off shows based off the title, promotional poster, trailer, general plot synopsis, first episode, etc. However, sometimes the quality of one's promotional material, or leading episode, doesn't always accurately portray or do justice to that piece of media as a whole. Sometimes you'll get something truly special, ignored by the masses, people who drop or write off a gem before it can even truly reveal its value. A couple months ago, I finished a seasonal anime called I'm Quitting Heroing. A season where Spy Family, Kaguya-Sama, Shield Hero, among many other popular properties, were all airing alongside one another. At a glance, it's easy to look at I'm Quitting Heroing, see the generic-looking fantasy poster, name, trailer, etc., and write it off as just another bargain bin power fantasy. God knows we have a lot of those already. I don't blame anyone for coming to that conclusion, as those were my initial thoughts going into this anime as well. However, upon finishing the final episode of the show, I've gotta say, I firmly believe I'm Quitting Heroing is one of the most criminally underrated animes I have seen in recent times. Now, I need to preface this show as no masterpiece, but I think it's one that needs some much needed justice and attention. While it's definitely not a guaranteed hit for every anime watcher, I'm hoping it shines some light on something overshadowed by today's titans. This is why I think I'm Quitting Heroing is criminally underrated. For starters, I think the central premise and hook for this anime is sick. Enter humanity's fabled hero and our story's protagonist, Leo Demonheart, who just single-handedly finished demolishing the enemy Demon Queen and her forces, putting a stop to her invasion against mankind. Leo has fulfilled his duty as a hero, saving the people of this world from the dangers of the demons yet again. However, Leo was not met with celebration or ceremonious glee, as one would expect. He's instead met with frightened glares and a collective cold shoulder from those who walk by him. The sheer power Leo wields and his ability to take on the Demon Queen's entire force as a one-man army terrifies the people more than anything else. Leo's mere existence becomes a major cause of contention for humanity, frustratingly overshadowing the righteous deed Leo just did for those same people. Before Leo knew it, the people he once fought for turned against him. Betrayed and denounced by humans, Leo is banished without a home or place to belong. Exiled by humanity, with nowhere else to go, he turns to the one place he believes he has a chance to belong. Seeing that the crumbling demon army is desperately looking for new recruits, who better to have joined their forces than the hero Leo himself? As could be expected though, his interview doesn't go well at all, especially considering his relation with the Demon Queen Echidna and the collateral damage he alone caused to her army. Able to talk with the 4 generals of Echidna's army in private, Leo explains his situation and convinces the 4 to give him a chance to help out. It takes a while for everyone to be fully on board, but eventually they each cave in, thanks to mutual respect held over from their previous encounters. From here, Leo works under the alias Lord Onyx, helping each of the generals with their tasks and their quest towards restabilizing the demon army, all while avoiding suspicion from the Queen, whose trust Leo must gradually work towards. Already we have what I think to be an amazing premise. I'm Quitting Heroing harbors this nice mixture between a Rebuild the Kingdom-esque anime, while also having its story center around a hero who chooses to turn to the side he was against all this time, and what a transition such as that looks like. The idea that the same people who Leo helped turned against him the moment they were saved was a fantastic kickoff to the narrative, which made Leo's desire to join Echidna's rankings all the more intriguing. While in the beginning Leo's true motivations are still unclear at the time, as the anime unfolds, we begin to learn a lot more about Leo, his reasons for turning over, and what this ultimately means for Queen Echidna and her goals. I also love the fact that out of everyone to take him in, it's the Demon Army, the people you'd least expect to welcome the nation's fabled, well now, ex-hero. Honestly, seeing Leo's relationship gradually grow with each of the 4 generals, and eventually Echidna herself, was one of my favorite aspects of the whole show. Altogether, with a promising setup, the big question remains: does it deliver? And the short answer is, well, yes. I wouldn't be making this video if it didn't. Another aspect I loved was how they handled Leo's time within the Demon Army. Not only does his participation give the audience a proper opportunity to really understand the Demon Army and their goals, but the episodes that come from this portion are among some of my favorites. Queen Echidna's army is in complete disarray, primarily due to the damage caused by Leo. So I guess in a sort of ironic sense, he's helping clean up his own mess. Though that's not to say all these problems are Leo's fault. There's some deeply rooted issues in regards to the army's organization, structure, and management, which has had a negative trickle effect on the day-to-day operation of the army. So if anything, Leo's damage may have actually brought to attention some of these serious issues that previously flew under the radar. Now, all this doesn't mean Echidna's a bad leader. She's actually a fairly competent one with goals and motivations that make a lot of sense. For context, the demon world is in pure ruin, near uninhabitable, and brimming with constant conflict. That's part of the reason why the demons came into the human realm in the first place. Echidna's goal is to restore balance to the demon realm and to give her people a peaceful place to live. Though the intended method of achieving this is revealed later, Echidna recognizes that through the eyes of humans, she's the bad guy, and she's effectively invading their territory. She holds no personal resentment towards mankind and will avoid needless bloodshed throughout her invasion if she can. Hell, she even welcomes humans who will join her cause with open arms. A self-proclaimed mercy policy, if you will. Though she came to the conclusion that this same naivety is what lost her the war, Echidna doesn't regret that philosophy. After all, a large reason for that policy is an underlying desire to bridge together the differences between humans and demons, and to her credit, she did do that to moderate success. A world where she could completely collaborate with humanity to restore the demon realm would be an ideal one. But destiny has other plans, as I'm sure you've guessed. It puts her in a tough spot, as both goals seem mutually exclusive, even if they're logically not. That said, she's dead set on achieving her ultimate goal, and is prepared to destroy mankind if that means what it takes. The only major thing between her and victory is Leo, who set her efforts back substantially. So it's understandable why she would flip out after Leo offered to join her army. To her, it came across as a mockery of her ambitions. While I'll touch more on Echidna as a leader later, I do want to highlight how this anime did a fantastic job at portraying the other side. It's not a secretly misunderstood type thing, or even a pure evil for the sake of being evil thing either. There's layers here. The demon army and their goals, considering their circumstances, make sense. They're at odds with humanity, as to achieve their goal, one has to lose something for the other to gain. If there were a peaceful way to restore the demon world without trampling over the human one, she would for sure do it. However, Echidna wants something the humans aren't willing to give up, thus conflict ensues. Though Leo joins the other side, it doesn't mean that this is the correct one. It's made apparent that this situation is complicated, and in a lot of areas, very gray. Going back to Leo, I honestly loved how the story used him when he was helping out the demon army, and especially his contributions to helping out the four generals. Each had areas of leadership they severely struggled with, hindering not only their role as a general, but was also a personal area of growth they desperately needed to overcome. Leo, utilizing his previous harrowing experience, is able to help all four generals grow as both people and leaders, each in a special way, resulting in a better effort to rebuild the demon army. Not to mention, Leo's time undercover as Lord Onyx was fun and allowed for frequent comedic moments. While not immediately apparent, the demon army and the central conflict surrounding it is a key tool for some extremely interesting social and philosophical commentary about Leo and his role as a hero later down the line. It also served as an excellent foundation for the central narrative conflict and the characters' personal arcs. Let's talk characters, because I think I'm Putting Heroing does a fantastic job with them. While overall they can be boiled down to simple stereotypical archetypes, that doesn't mean they have no personality, interesting aspects, or impactful development associated with them. I think this anime is a perfect example of how you don't always need crazy, over-the-top characters to tell an engaging narrative, and how sometimes using the simple things to your advantage can still make for a great and compelling story. We'll start with our main protagonist, Leo Demonheart. Leo on the surface really doesn't stand out as anything special, but as the story develops, we begin to see how great of a character he really is. Without diving too much into spoilers, Leo is an insanely charismatic prick. Obviously, being among the most powerful entities in the world does something to one's ego, which Leo is definitely not short of. That said, Leo isn't an unlikable character and definitely isn't a mean-spirited one either. Leo genuinely does his best to help others out and can be serious or down to earth when the situation calls for it. He's a hard worker and a really fun character as well. His overly casual demeanor and passive-aggressive sense of humor meshes really nicely with the more uptight and serious of the four generals. And of course, Echidna herself. His backstory, internal conflict, and personal journey are some of the best attributes of the whole show, really propelling this anime to new heights. Again, for now, I'll hold off on saying what those elements are in case people want to experience those reveals fresh, but trust me when I say they completely alter the way we look at Leo and this anime as a whole. Following that, we have the demon army's four generals. Something I think I'm Quoting Hearing did well was not make any of the 4 generals feel less important or covered than the other. They balance all 4 generals well in both screen time and development, giving Leo the proper time to help each of them with their own flaws and problems. It was also nice we got a brief but helpful backstory regarding Leo's previous encounters with the 4 generals when he was fighting against the demon army. That little bit of context went a long way to help us better understand Chytina, Lily, Myrnez, and Edvard going forward. We have Chytina, the extremely dedicated yet uptight magic user who has a major problem taking on too much work due to a mistrust of others. Lily, a cute but bird-brained wolf girl who has a problem taking things seriously and probably has too much authority considering her childlike immaturity and mentality. Myrnez, who's basically the angsty love child of Ishigami and Komi, who severely struggles opening up to and communicating with others, and Edvard, the musclehead who has difficulties understanding and leading his people, failing to see the world through a point of view of someone weaker than him. Every general is unique and learns something important about what it takes to be a leader. These are attributes and lessons we can take away and apply to our own everyday lives, whether it be learning to trust those you work alongside, balancing work and play, the importance of communication, and what it means to understand the struggles of others, even if you don't face those struggles yourself. Every general has a lot of depth to them, even if they can't be described with just simple one-sentence phrases. They're each established nicely and do their part in pushing the story forward and its underlying narrative themes. Finally, we have Echidna, who I already briefly touched upon before. I think she's a nice take on the Demon Lord archetype, not leaning too hard in the edge department, but also having goals and motivations that stand out from other takes of the trope. She really is the glue that keeps the anime together, and the narrative wouldn't be the same without her inclusion. That plus her pseudo-tsundere personality is a great cause for laughs and gags throughout the show. Overall, every character is charming and established well, with witty yet realistic feeling dialogue between them.
Remember how after 2 minutes of combat you started sobbing? Kinda sad, really.
Of course I'm no match for physical combat! Did you forget that I'm a mage?
Sure, but a real professional would have a plan B.
But there is no plan B against someone who can nullify all my spells, you pompous ass! There literally isn't anyone in the world who can counter that in the split second their enemy casts it!
But there is. That's me.
I'm also a fan of the characters' simple standout designs. It's not a lot, especially compared to the best from other anime, but they do a good job in embodying everyone's personality in an accurate fashion and are pleasing to look at. I wish I could say the same about the background demons, but I digress. To me, the main cast is a major highlight for the anime. It really does go to show that you can do a lot with traditional archetypes and simplicity, and how you can use that to strengthen your cast without explicitly making those characters feel flat or generic. Before jumping in further, I just want to preface that there will be some pretty major spoilers ahead. If I haven't already sold you on this show, chances are the more compelling reasons I think this anime is so underrated come from these following segments. I think it's best to experience this content relatively blind, though I'll be breaking down the plot in the second half anyways, covering things in a similar fashion as they're revealed. And just know this is your last chance to turn away. That said, there's some pretty crazy stuff coming up ahead, so at the same time I encourage you to keep watching if you're curious. Just don't say I didn't warn you. Oh, and please consider supporting me and this channel if you like what I'm doing. With a healthy upload schedule of one video every 6 or so months, I wasn't finished. When doing a mock interview with Myrnez, Leo was asked his reason for joining Echidna's forces. Leo up to this point has never really given anyone a clear answer on what his real intentions were. The 4 generals were initially wary of internal sabotage, but of course even up to now, Leo has done nothing but help the demon army out. Leo responds to the question with the same answer we've been presuming up to this point, that he wants to destroy and get revenge on humanity after they betrayed and discarded him. Makes sense considering the narrative patterns up to this point. He gave it his all to protect him and they threw him away. Except Leo's pretty obviously bluffing. A bluff that Melnus can see right through. If Leo truly wanted to destroy humanity as much as he emphasized, he's strong enough to do it all on his own. In fact, that exact strength was a primary reason why humanity exiled him in the first place. From Melna's perspective, someone who hates humanity to his core, he can't wrap around this idea that Leo would go as far as to seek humanity's destruction. Despite his circumstance, Leo's barely shown any anger or resentment towards humans. For Leo to want their annihilation seems incredibly out of character. Melnez realizes this and pushes further. Though he initially tries to dodge the question, it eventually catches up to Leo, backing him into a wall. And so begins the tale of Leo's backstory. A backstory that quite literally changes everything. Leo was born in an age without either demons, monsters, or magic. A relatively peaceful world, with rapid technological innovation, towering gray skyscrapers, and bustling streets of everyday business people. Enter Tokyo 2060 AD, the year everything went wrong. What started in just Tokyo quickly spread all across the world. The demons, unsatisfied and sick of their dilapidating home, opened a portal to take over the human planet. It wasn't long until humanity was at full-on war with demonkind. Human strength and weaponry were far too weak to hold up a defense against the demons. So humanity was forced to innovate and create something that would end the calamity of their home once and for all. And what better way to stop demons than creating a more powerful one yourself? Leo is the 5th among 12 bioweapons called the Demon Heart series, designed specifically to serve and protect humanity against world-ending threats such as the demons. Each Demon Heart specializes in a different developmental concept, giving each a unique expertise from the other. Leo, said to be the weakest of the Demon Hearts, harbors the ability to infinitely evolve to his opponents and environment, making him grow stronger with every combat and encounter. This version of Leo is far different than anything else we've seen up to this point. The campy, lovable jerk we've all come to know is nowhere to be seen. Instead, we have this still-faced, emotionless killing machine with a one-track mind, to protect humanity and save the world. This was the day-to-day life of Leo for a long time. These were his orders, and he followed them to a T. That was until he had a chance encounter with an imp, an encounter Leo will never forget. It all begins with Leo investigating a strange imp who is said to be preaching coexistence in the city streets. Upon their encounter, out of fear, the imp gives critical information regarding the demons, why they're invading, and the Demon King to our protagonist. It's clarified the portal that opened was an experiment by the Demon King said to have gone wrong, and those fed up with the demon world, or just curious about the human one, entered the portal to get a taste of a better life. While some were interested in peace and coexistence, the more violent demons gave demonkind a whole a bad rap, plunging humanity almost instantly into war. The imp reveals that it's very likely the Demon King will properly mobilize his forces in a second invasion, seeing how weak and destabilized the humans are currently. Though the imp prepares for the end of his life, it's spared by none other than Leo. And thanks for giving Leo valuable information, he plans on escorting the imp to the Containment Squadron rendezvous point, as opposed to leaving the demon to die. The two shortly exchange names, with the imp revealed to be called Abrad. Leo explains to Abrad his origin and purpose as a demon heart, to which Abrad doesn't take well. Not because he disagrees with Leo's cause, but rather what it implies later down the road. Leo only has purpose when humanity is in danger. When humanity returns to a state of calm, the desirable outcome mind you, Leo loses his reason for existence. He'll risk his life for peace, but then end up with no job or place to belong, forced to stand idly for disaster to reign on humanity again. His reason for living is going to be stripped away, but he'll have to live on anyways, confused and aimless forever. This is a fate Abrad finds cruel, especially considering Leo's relative immortality, trapping Leo in an endless cycle of regaining and losing his purpose over and over again. He'll never get a chance to rest. Thankfully, before Leo earns his humanity, there's a high risk he dies in battle, so likely he'll never live long enough for this to be a genuine concern. However, I think we both know that sometimes things don't always work out how we expect them to. Before Abrad leaves, he proclaims one last time that he'll find a way for both humans and demons to live in harmony, to bridge the gap between their people. But there's one more thing Abrad says, something that will stick with Leo for the rest of his days, defining the trajectory of the entire anime going forward.
Don't work yourself to death! If it hurts too much to go on, then get yourself the hell out of here! If life gets tough, then just do what you want to do! I don't know dick about bioweapons, but prioritize you! Live your life the way you want! Don't get too caught up in this born to protect humanity shit! The day that humanity stops needing you, then that's gonna be your chance to split! You take care, okay? Find something else to live for! Anything! Go out and enjoy your life!
I will.
Leo! I'll always remember your name. Don't you dare forget mine. You got that?
And such is the tale of Abrad, Leo's first friend and a name he will never forget. With time, the other demon hearts were destroyed in battle one by one, eventually leaving Leo standing all on his own. Leo has reached a point of power that would shock even his creators, thanks to his specialization in self-improving and adaptability. He's missed his chance to die, now living as a lone hero in a regressed era of magic, a civilization rebuilt, long past the lost mechanical age of our modern world. What was once a silly slice of life fantasy centering around workplace behavior and management is recontextualized into something much deeper and compound. I like this backstory for two primary reasons: for how it develops the story world, and Leo as the anime's protagonist. Up to now, the fantasy world has been just that, a fantasy world. I think having the story take place in our world, just in the post-apocalyptic future, is both a fun and clever idea. It adds context to just how long the demons and humanity have been at war, what was lost over that conflict, how the world recovered, and is a relatively fresh take on a fantasy setting. With both an OP protagonist and demon lord, it's a perfect recipe for what could have been just another kingdom rebuilding isekai. While I'm sure the anime would have trudged along fine if this were the case, I appreciate the story took a different approach. It helps give this anime a unique identity, setting it apart from the disastrously generic standards of modern fantasy. Which brings me to my second reason as to why I like this backstory: what it does to Leo as a protagonist. I will admit, on first impression, Leo really didn't do it for me. And honestly, I won't blame anyone who felt the same way. He didn't look particularly interesting, and it was too soon to gauge what kind of protagonist he'd be. For all I know, Leo could have easily just been another blank-slated, self-insert main character. However, with what this backstory reveals about him, it goes to show that Leo is someone who battles with something a lot more complicated than anything the audience can relate to. Leo was born into this world as a hero, with no other expectations, ambitions, or way of life. For the past few millennia, Leo's devoted his life to saving humanity again and again, as that was all he ever knew. However, despite this, when pushed away by the people he protected his whole life, he wasn't angry or upset. He was happy. It gave him the chance to quit heroing, a chance to be his own self, live life by his own terms. Just like Abrad said, he took his chance and found something else to live for. It's the words of Abrad that helped propel Leo's gradual growth and change. How beautifully poetic it is that it's a demon, a being that Leo was designed to specifically kill, is the same one that gave him the gift of liberty and, ironically enough, humanity. Leo still has a long ways to go before he's truly unshackled from the chains of his origins. But what's important is that he was given the push to take that first step forward towards a path of true freedom. For him to join the demon army on his own is a huge deal. It's a critical and major choice Leo made all on his own, one neither his internal programming nor societal expectations made for him. In addition, you would never guess where Kidden's philosophy towards humanity came from. A children's tale as old as time, called Abrad, the Joiner of Hands. A tale of an oddball imp who built a utopia where humans and demons can live in harmony. Though Abrad went down in history as someone far greater than he ever was, his impacts and missions still have an effect on the present day. Isn't it interesting how Abrad had both an effect on Echidna and Leo in the present, for similar yet different reasons? Despite the two being on complete different ends of the spectrum, they're unified by a little imp with a big dream. Another reason why I like Leo's backstory is because it does something a lot of modern fantasy stories don't do: justify an overpowered protagonist. Leo being an ancient government bioweapon is cool in itself, but how they use his power is really what does it for me. It's an extremely important part of Leo's character, which heavily influences his personality, past, and the anime's narrative direction. Leo's not overpowered for the sake of being overpowered. The overflowing strength Leo harbors, practically giving him mortality, is worked expertly into both his internal conflict and personal journey as the last of the Living Demon Heart series. It explores the negative impact a power of that level can have on a person's ego, sense of self, judgment, and most of all, happiness. Not to mention the anime's frequent commentary on both the consequences of immortality and what truly makes someone a hero. We haven't seen the last of Abrad's effect on Leo, and it looks like there's a little more Leo's keeping from the others about his true reason for joining. That's of course because we still have the ending to talk about, an ending that, despite the controversy, pushed me to make this video. Okay, hear me out. I won't blame anyone for feeling strongly about how this anime ended, because admittedly there's a couple hiccups in how it was handled. That said, I've seen some seriously intense negativity surrounding this anime's ending online, saying that because it ended one way, it completely ruins what otherwise could have been a great show. Well, I disagree. In my opinion, not only is this reaction severely overblown, but I think either direction it could have gone would have been a strong end for the series, fitting well with the premise up to this point. Hopefully I can shed some light on why I think this is. So let's rewind a little bit. Leo, disguised as Lord Onyx, has a special thank you dinner with Echidna herself. After a rather uncomfortably timed tantrum over how Leo screwed over her plans, we learn what the Demon Queen is truly after. Echidna seeks the holy treasure, the Philosopher's Stone, an artifact that's said to power nations, restore wastelands to their former green glory, or even make someone immortal. Most of those tales are just false rumors, however. The Philosopher's Stone holds immense power, but isn't a magical cure-all like most people think. Despite this, Leo inquires further to better understand Echidna's true intentions. As already established, Echidna doesn't seek power, nor riches, nor even human conquest. It turns out that Echidna seeks the Philosopher's Stone as a potential solution to restore stability to the Demon Realm, reforge a land of ruin, and bring peace to a world of chaos. That's the dream she's not willing to let go, no matter how insurmountable the obstacles that face her. As the current leader of the Demon Army, she's fighting to better the lives of her people, and though she holds no personal resentment against humanity, the damage stealing the stone would cause to them is an unfortunate sacrifice she's willing to make to end the multi-millennia turmoil of the demon world. So that brings us to the big question. Echidna asks Lord Onyx, with him being human, why did he join the Demon Army? Did humanity betray him? Did he wish to put an end to the world? Was he seeking a place to die? Or did he just genuinely support her cause? Well, as I'm sure you've gathered by now, Leo's reason for joining extends far beyond whatever he told Myrnis. It's not an easy question to answer either, because his real reason for joining is actually a strange mixture of all of the above. With that important piece of context, let's fast forward ourselves to the beginning of the end. Leo is now in a position where he can fully trust the Demon Army and feels not only comfortable revealing his true identity to Echidna, but to also share some of the additional details regarding his reason for joining that he chose to keep very quiet about. Crisis hits Echidna once more, as the portal bridging the demon and human world is coming to a collapse. The portal likely won't open for several centuries, and she has a limited window before it closes. Echidna is faced with a difficult decision. She can retreat into the demon realm to lead her people, abandoning what she's built up in the human world, and leave her goals of obtaining the Philosopher's Stone in the hands of a future ruler, or she can make a reckless last resort effort to take the Philosopher's Stone at the risk of the hero permanently destroying what's already an incredibly volatile and fractured army, causing foolhardy bloodshed. Neither option looks appealing. If only the hero were gone, it would make this decision a no-brainer. Obviously though, there's an abhorrently large elephant in the room everyone but the Demon Queen is aware of. Given the situation, Leo finally takes off his helmet and reveals his true identity to Echidna. Now here is where Leo gives two very important pieces of information about himself. First, he knows of a second Philosopher's Stone available, protected by a powerful guardian in the nearby Seashet Mountains, one that Echidna would more easily have access to. Second, a primary reason why he stuck around was to see if the Demon Army could truly be trusted with the power of the stone, something that they collectively already more than proved themselves with. Though Echidna's reaction is initially extremely hostile, the testimonies of the four generals is enough to at least calm her down, despite her hesitancy and shock. It seems too good to be true, but if Leo really is telling the truth to Echidna, then restoring the demon world seems more than possible, as she may now be given a proper chance to make peace with humanity as well. Leo takes Echidna and the others to the top of the mountain, but there's no guardian and no Philosopher's Stone. Just the vast empty fields of snow and stone. Something is off and everyone can tell. This is where Leo drops yet another bombshell on the audience, one that when contextualized, transforms this anime into something really special. The second Philosopher's Stone is stored within Leo himself, an infinite generator that gives the Demon Heart series relative immortality and power. You could effectively consider the stone his heart and lifeblood. If the Demon Army truly wants to achieve their goals, they must take the Philosopher's Stone right out of his body, killing Leo in the process. In an almost poetic sense, he's passing the torch of a hero over to the Demon Queen and her four generals. Not only that, but if Echidna fails to kill Leo, or chooses to run away, he threatens to descend down the mountain and kill every last human he finds, on top of forever destroying any hope of Echidna obtaining the stone to achieve her goals. Now, it's not clear if this threat is a bluff to force her to fight, or why he even chooses to go about things this way. But if one thing's for sure, it's not worth the risk to see if he's serious. If Echidna wants to save the world, humanity, and her home, she must stop Leo here and now. Things make a little more sense when you analyze Leo's headspace up to now. Protecting humanity is Leo's sole identity. Fighting for peace is all he's ever known, from the day of his conception. And though Leo had his doubts, Aprad's concerns were right. When the world isn't in peril or need of Leo's help, he loses all sense of purpose and personal direction, wandering aimlessly, secretly hoping for disaster to show its ugly face once again. But at that point, if he bothers saving humanity, he'll be put right back in the same position he was before. It's a grueling cycle, and the inevitable day humanity is able to fend for itself without the need of Leo is the day he'll officially have no place to belong. You'd think the hard-fought peace would be enough, but that couldn't be further from the reality. The looming thought of losing all purpose, identity, and sense of self haunts Leo, and there's no telling exactly when Leo will break, going as far to bring calamity to the world just so he could give himself a reason to protect it. Something I really like about this anime is how it explores and gives commentary to what happens to the hero after they win. Most stories wrap up after the hero achieves their goal, rarely looking to the life of that person after all is done. I'm Quitting Heroing takes the time to show how a situation like Leo's can have a heavy toll on a person's mentality. What an ex-hero's path could look like after their identity is stripped completely away from them and have nothing left to live for. Whether or not Leo is being serious about destroying humanity isn't really the point. Rather, Leo acknowledges that one of the best solutions to truly break free from this curse is to die before he gets to that point. And it's at this moment you realize that this isn't just a show about quitting heroing, but rather you've been watching an ex-hero's quest to seek his own death. But as you watch this fight unfold, it makes you wonder, is this truly the end he wants? Given Leo's strength and power, it's obvious Leo is holding back. Despite his proud remarks and epically edgy speech about being both humanity's savior and destroyer, his actions throughout the grand finale say something different. It's almost as if he's forcing himself to fight, putting up a villainous front because he's deluded himself into believing this is the only avenue out for him. His anger and hatred are directed neither towards humanity nor the demon army. This isn't the ending Leo wants. The real thing Leo hates is himself and his fate. After putting up a admittedly weak effort of a fight, Leo falls to Echidna's anti-hero beam, getting hit on purpose just as he'd planned. In his mind, these were his final moments. Though he briefly broke free before, he'll now die as he lived, a hero. Leo admits that he was indeed bluffing and never intended on killing anyone, neither humanity nor the demon army. But he dreads the day he does. It was already close to reaching that breaking point before. Best to end things now before then, and sacrifice himself to bring peace to both worlds. A real die a hero or live long enough to see yourself become the villain moment. So in a bittersweet last few moments with Leo, as a last request, he entrusts Echidna to take the Philosopher's Stone out of his chest and end his life. It's time for her to become the hero of her own people. So Echidna takes the Philosopher's Stone out of Leo's chest and carries on his legacy, right? As strong of an ending that might have been, it's not what we ended up getting. In a somewhat kinda unexpected turn of events, Echidna and the generals deny Leo his death, and refuse to pull the stone out of his body, at least not immediately. Instead, they propose an alternative for him to consider. Leo has the option to formally join the demon army under Queen Echidna as not Lord Onyx, but as Leo, the ex-hero, just as he requested in the first episode. Now, this is where things get a little shaky. Given his big act, Leo obviously protests. He says how keeping him alive would inevitably be the end for humanity, due to how the Demon Heart series were designed. And though Leo grew a conscience, allowing him to bypass the anti-rebellious programming he was born with, there's still one thing holding him down: his inability to fully let go of the identity he was born into, the order to protect humanity. The ringing voice in his head tells him to protect humanity from evil, an order he felt obligated to follow for over 3,000 years. But really, more than anyone else, it was Leo doing that to himself. All he had to do was convince himself otherwise. And so, that brings us to our tipping point. Leo is given a choice. If Leo truly wants to die the tragic death of a hero, Echidna won't stop him from doing so. After all, it is his life. But on the alternative, if Leo truly wants to live, he's being given a second chance at life. The ability to live for something else, not something decided from the circumstances of his birth, but a dream and goal chosen by his own free will. And when thinking back to the final words of his old friend Abrad, it's no wonder why Leo accepts Echidna's offer, deciding to work towards the peace of two worlds instead of just one. And though that may have been Leo's one chance to finally pass on, he lives on with zero regrets, happy he can now live life on his own terms, truly shaping himself to be someone he wants to become, together with his newfound family. And so is the end of I'm Quitting Heroing. A happy ending for what otherwise could have been a rather bittersweet tale. So here's the thing. I know a lot of people watching wanted for Leo to die, for him to give up his Philosopher's Stone, pass on his legacy as a hero over to Echidna and the Four Generals, and be put to rest once and for all. After living for just over 3,000 years, death makes thematic sense for his character, and is somewhat appropriate for the story being told. The permanent death of a story's central protagonist is a narrative choice that many writers aren't bold enough to take, and in I'm Quoting Heroing's case, would have done a lot to help this anime stand out. I can understand why people would be frustrated with the direction it ended up going. That said, I think it's unfair to discredit the direction it ended up taking. Because when breaking it down, I think the message it says is quite powerful, and one we could all learn from. For one, I really like the contrast between Leo's journey to death, dying for someone else, versus the idea of living on for one's own ambitions, dreams, and self. This idea that we don't have to be chained down by the circumstances of our birth, but it's instead what we do with the gift of life that truly make us who we are. Nobody can spend their existence dedicated to a single immovable idea of what they're meant to do, and that extends to both Leo and ourselves. I love that Leo was given a choice in his final moments. A choice he was denied from having when he first came into this world. Instead of succumbing to his fate as someone else's hero, he was able to set out a path for himself and truly gain a sense of individuality. It's really nice that in the end, he was able to follow the final words of his old friend Abrad. He's found something else to live for, living the life he wants to. For Leo to die the exact way Abrad predicted all those years ago doesn't feel right. Now, as eloquently as I've been phrasing all this, I have to admit watching it all play out, there is a sense of dissatisfaction when leaving the show. And the ending 2 episodes can be somewhat confusing and messy. It doesn't help how there's a tragic sense of irony, how he traded being bound to his birth title to living as a subordinate to someone else's cause, even if he chose out of his own free will. Also, the notion that he may be forced to live for several centuries more, just after living 3,000 years, does leave a somewhat sour taste in my mouth, especially considering the show covered the cruelty of immortality earlier in its run. Whether Leo lives or dies, he's being released of the burden of being humanity's hero, all while helping both humanity and demonkind, which is what's most important on a narrative level. That said, I do think the direction it ended up taking was the better of the two, if not for the message alone. I won't disregard those who feel otherwise, but it's way too easy to be caught in the motions of Leo's death. While letting Leo live in the end was a bit more cliche, it's by no means a worse ending nor a poorly written narrative cop-out. For what it's worth, it's a fine conclusion to a great show. And that, everyone, is I'm Quoting Heroing, an anime that, while not void of flaws, is one that's incredibly underappreciated. I'm glad I gave this anime a chance, because I ended up finding a piece of work that resonated with me a lot more than it probably should. I know that sounds crazy considering I'm Quoting Heroing, compared to the medium's best, is just above average. Something about the stories, themes, settings, all bundled together in a nice simplistic package really did it for me. If you're interested in I'm Quoting Heroing, but are worried I basically spoiled the entire anime for you, I still suggest checking out the show when you have the chance. The charm, humor, and feels won't really hit if your only experience is through the lens of some random person on the internet. While the overall reception towards I'm Quoting Heroing was generally positive, it wasn't all too great. And while I think many of the negative reviews are valid in their own ways, I feel a lot of people dropped the show before its potential was revealed, or never gave it a fair chance to begin with. Who can blame them with the abundance of poorly written generic fantasy out there nowadays? But if I can introduce even one person to this anime, and that person ends up discovering a piece of work that really connects with them, well, I think that's enough to make me happy. My name is Chyrion, and thanks for watching.